And we're live. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for another live stream episode of Dogman Encounters. We've got a pretty intense one for you tonight, but before we get into the particulars of what this man and his dog unfortunately had to go through, we're going to bring him on here and basically introduce you to him. Of course, I'm talking about our guest tonight, Bret. Bret, thanks so much for coming on.
That's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks so much for your time and for doing this. I know it's not easy to talk about. It's a pretty traumatic experience that both you and Murphy had, but like I said, that's one of the biggest reasons why we appreciate you coming so much. But before we get to the particulars of your encounter, can you please give us a brief bio on yourself?
Oh, I'm in my 50s. I've lived in Las Vegas off and on most of my life. I am a big dog person. I've had dogs my entire life, multiple dogs usually. I went through a period of my life where I didn't have any, and that was really tough on me. And that's when my little buddy, I was babysitting a dog, and my little buddy Murphy was born in my closet while I was babysitting his mom and dad. And it was, for me, it was love at first sight. I can't tell you what Murphy thought, but and the lady that I was babysitting for actually let me keep Murphy after the 8-week period, of course. And he's been my constant companion for the last 11 years now. And after this encounter, I actually started fostering dogs, and now like I said, I've got about 5 deep right now. I've always just, I try to do what I can for the dogs in the world, because I think somebody needs to kind of stick up for them, especially the strays.
You're a good man for doing that, and of course for other reasons as well. Considering the fact that your encounter with Murphy, with that dog man, happened in 2016, how old is he now?
He's 11. He's
So
11 right now.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Is he doing okay? Because even for a smaller dog like him, 11's kind of getting up there.
Well, you know what? He's pretty healthy. He right now he's a little beside himself. We just lost his mom a couple of weeks ago, and that really threw him for a loop. Me too, for that matter. But she was 16, and she had a good life. So, but
she did.
Yeah, she had a good life. Actually, again, after this encounter happened, after I came back to Las Vegas after this, the owner of Lulu, his mom, actually had put her up for adoption in a shelter. I just happened to see her on Facebook, and I ran down to the shelter as fast as I could and adopted her. Unfortunately, I was too late for his father, because she'd already been adopted, but I grabbed Lulu right away. And so she was with us from then on. So I had her for 11 years too. So
I'm sure those were 11 great years. I've got no doubts about that.
Yeah, it's a great life. I'm not big on people sometimes. I kind of isolate myself from human beings, but yeah, I love my dogs. I love my animals. So that's a big part of who I am.
I can understand why you say that, because I feel the same way. I collect the whole set also.
Oh, do you?
I do. Yeah. Too many animals around here.
I've got five dogs, a cat, and a turtle, and a little robot, which you can probably hear squeaking in the background.
Well, you already put a thumb on it tonight when we're doing this. If you have to step away because of the 5 dogs you've got in the house with you, then just let me know, like I told you before, and I'll just do something like maybe I'll sing to pass time while you tend to them, and then we'll come back.
Well, there you go. Well, they're all being pretty uncharacteristically nice right now, so it's good.
Well, that's scary. It makes you wonder they might be plotting on you.
I know. I don't know what they're thinking about now, but yeah. And Murphy's right here next to me. He's all cuddled up. He's ready to go. After Lulu's death, because unfortunately it was, we've had some problems with some of these animals before, some of them being aggressive and stuff. He's been really shy. I think he's got flashbacks to be honest with you. I mean, I know that's one of the first reasons I contacted you was because I was getting these nightmares, and like I said, this happened, like almost 10 years ago now. Well, not quite 10 years ago. But, and I started getting these nightmares again, and I think he does too now. Since Lulu's been gone, he's been acting kind of funny. But we're getting
I
through it.
I can understand why you two would have nightmares, because whew, that encounter, like I said in the description for tonight's show, you can almost make a movie out of that encounter. The qualities, what happened to both you, and especially what happened to poor Murphy. I mean, that is just perfect, unfortunately, for a Hollywood script.
Yeah,
For
it'd be perfect. Yes, it'd be like maybe 15 minutes long, but yeah.
I don't know. It would be longer than that. But yeah, I hope his nightmares, I hope they stop soon and he's not still reliving that experience, because
I don't really, I don't know how dogs' memories work, but I don't know if he's actually remembering that or he's just traumatized. Period, with the death of his mom and stuff like that. So we always have a tendency to kind of anthropomorphize dogs' feelings and their actions and things like that, and kind of makes ourselves think that they're thinking certain things when who knows how they really think. And but I know that he's got a lot of emotion, and all my dogs do. And that's one thing I think about as fostering dogs has done for me over the years is they're all individual, and you can look into their eyes and you can know what they're thinking. And I've never come across a dog that I haven't been able to at least calm down. Like I was telling you earlier, all the dogs I have now are considered unadoptable. And I love them. I think they're wonderful dogs, but not a lot of people people don't really want them, which is a shame, but that's the way it is.
That really is a shame. But no, I understand what you're saying. Unless a dog fits a certain type of profile, then I guess it's all too easy to consider that dog unadoptable.
It really is. It's a shame because you want people to get rescue dogs and stuff, but they expect these rescue dogs to be perfect, and they're just not. They've already been traumatized. They already have a history. They already have been through it, and they've got baggage, just like people,
Oh, of course. I mean, if I was a dog, I'd be unadoptable. So
I tell you, me too. That's for damn sure. That's been proven.
Can't fault them at all for that. And
No,
for
it's
anyone listening who's wondering, if you take a look at the avatar that Bret has up on the screen right now, you'll be able to see Murphy and be able to see how adorable he is. Yeah, I can understand why you did fall for him the moment you saw him.
Well, yeah. It's funny because he's named after Murphy's Law, and it's because Lulu had him. He was the first one out, and I heard her scream. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and she went shooting out of my closet, where she had the puppies at. And she went shooting out of my closet, dragging him by the umbilical cord behind her, like, I thought, oh my God. And so I put her back in the box, and then she kicked him out of the box. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with this puppy? She doesn't want him. But eventually she took to him, and he was fine. But he was the runt. So he was the only boy, and he was the only black one. Everybody else was tan and female.
Well, thank goodness she took him back in.
Yeah, I was worried, but she did. She took him back in pretty quick. Apparently she'd had several litters before him, and she was getting too old for it. She just didn't want to do it anymore. I mean, you can't really blame her after that, Who could? But
no, you can't blame her. But like I said, thank goodness she took him back.
Yeah, he's been my constant companion.
Well, I can understand how that must be. You're a lucky man to have him around.
He's my ESA dog, the emotional support dog. He goes wherever I go, and that's always been the case. Back then, he was like maybe 3. I want to say 3 or 4, something like that. Yeah, he was a sweet pup, but he's always been a very serious dog. It's kind of weird to say, but he's not like one of these playful little fluffy pups. He's got a look in his eye that he's always been very serious about life.
Well, I can't
So,
think of a better constant companion. That's
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah. He's changed my life. The dogs have changed my life. I haven't always been a wonderful guy. I mean, I try to be as much as I can be, but I was back then. I was married or getting a divorce actually, and I had fallen into like a depression and drugs, and I had been pretty much uh, what do you call it? Tough. Like, it's called the tough love. My family called it. But I had pretty much been exonerated from the family. I was no longer welcome in the family, and my wife, of course, left me and was going to sell the house. And I pretty much had lost everything. I was in bad shape, um, and I still was on drugs. So that uh, I had nothing left here in Las Vegas, and so a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to come stay with him. He'd just gotten a mobile home up in Washington State, and I said, "Yeah, sure, why not? It sounds like a nice change of pace in the desert anyway." So yeah, that's how it all started. Um, but that didn't work out because after I told him about the encounter, he really thought it was was crazy, and he didn't feel comfortable with me staying there, so I just left. So,
Something I want to stress is the fact that you were not high at the time of the encounter.
oh my God, no! I
Put
wish I
that
would have
out
been. Yeah,
to make sure everyone listening understands that.
yeah.
But we've kind of danced around the topic enough. If you're ready to tell the listeners about your experience, Bret, let's do it. But if you need more time to prepare, because I know it's not easy at all to talk about, then we can give you more time.
No, I can get into it. I just want to tell the viewers, of course, that I am going to stammer a little bit because it is a very, um, I guess, intense story, and it does bring up some I don't know, I guess just memories and stuff. But yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, it's no problem.
Before you do begin, please do me a favor, Bret.
Hmm.
Because of how intense it is, especially to relive, if you need to stop, if you have to reset, by all means, please just let me know and we'll take a little break. So
All
we'll
right.
do this in your own good time.
Okay.
But having said that, yeah, please tell us about your encounter now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay. Well, like I'd mentioned, I had decided to start over. I didn't like the way my life. I'd gone through this life at this point, and I was already in my 40s, and it was just this is ridiculous. I'm not gonna get anywhere in life like this. I've got to straighten out. I've got to do something with my life, and it's not going to be here in Vegas. I thought. So I packed up everything I had left, and including Murphy, and he had no idea what was going on, of course. But we just hit the road, and hit the road early one morning, and well, not yeah, it was early for me. It's like 9 a.m. Anyway, so we traveled down the highway. We're going probably kind of good 8 9 hours, and we were on our way to Washington State. And I am not a big driving fan. I don't like to drive for hours and hours and hours. So I'd already hit like one or two of these rest stops before, and but a lot of them were closed, and because there was like freeway work going on. And along about I don't know 5 or 6, it was right before dusk. It was right before dusk, and I saw one more press stop, and Murphy had to get out and take a walk. I mean, he starts getting down. He's very vocal about that kind of thing. So I picked up on the hints and said, okay. So I saw this rest stop, and it's one of these rest stops where it's for both like truckers and just regular people. Um, you pull off to the side, and you kind of go down this little gully, and first thing you see off to your left is like this RV parking area. and that there was a good room for about 6 or 7 RVs. There was one pulling out as we pulled in because I almost hit it. I remember that. Um, and as I pulled in, there was maybe four, four cars at the rest stop. I would think you could see that the place was being remodeled or redone because the old bathroom stalls, the old bathroom building was blocked off and it looked condemned or whatever. But they blocked it off and they built these two new brand spanking new little restroom buildings with a nice big fluorescent light. But if you go back past that, the main parking lot was still pretty much the original, and the lighting wasn't as good. And and that's where I saw there was like a truck filled with stuff, um, like a pickup truck, and it was two guys were in it. I would say I don't want to be like stereotypical or anything, but I would say that there were two guys, and one of them was very loud and cursing and stuff, and on the phone, and the other guy he was wandering off towards the restroom. So I don't know, I didn't really see him very well. Um, so I pulled past them. They didn't make me feel comfortable. They kind of like looked like kind of thuggy, you know. And so I just went ahead, pulled past that truck, and pulled into a. I saw this. There was a single guy in a car, and then a family was pulling out in a sedan, and I pulled in right where they pulled out of. And I sat there, and my intention was, to be honest, to relax and get high. But Murphy was like antsy, and he was ready to go for a walk. And I was like, okay, fine, we'll do that first. So I'm fishing around in the back seat because I've got all my belongings back there, and I'm fishing around for the what you call the leash. And as I do so, this van pulls up next to me, like we're an SUV kind of van, one of those hybrid things. And I put the clip on Murphy. He's not very good on a leash, I'll be honest. That's one of his shortcomings. He's just not very good on a leash because he likes to. I mean, I've always gone places, and like I said, he's my ESA dog. He just stays by my side. Period. He's very well behaved. But this car pulls up next to us, and instantly he's like antsy all of a sudden, and I see one lady. She's kind of the wife. She's getting out, and she's kind of halfway paying attention to her phone and getting out of the van. And I've got my door open, and I look up here and I smile and like a nod of the head greeting kind of a thing. And I can hear the husband getting out and talking on the other side of the van. He was the driver, and I don't know what he's doing, but he's talking to somebody or something. And all of a sudden, this big kind of golden doodle thing. I don't know what he is. He's a golden retriever mix, and comes bounding at us and scares the living shit out of both me and Murphy. And the guy goes, "Chief, chief, chief," and he pulls back on the leaf. And he says, "I'm so sorry." I said, "No, it's okay." And he's just he loves dogs. He loves other dogs, but he's just not used to being that forward with them. And so he jumped into my arms basically, and I was like, "Okay." And so I picked him up for a minute, and she apologized for Chief, and it's okay, it's all right, no problem. And he said, and her husband said, he just really has to go. And I said, no, I get it, that's why we were here too, same thing. And so I stand up, and they've got like this little dog park or dog walking trail. It wasn't really a park. The whole place is surrounded by woods. I mean, you can't see the freeway from the rest stop, which is great. But as you pass, I'm trying to describe it the best way I can. But if like I said, RV area, then where I was, and if you go up the hill to exit, there's like the semi, the 18-wheeler parking, and they've got one of those up there, and I can hear his music, but I can't see what he's doing or how many people are up there. So, but as I look past him, I can see the little dog park area. There's this little trail that has little lights, the little landscaping lights and stuff. You can go on the dog park. And I also noticed that there's some like construction vehicles, smaller, like there's like a bulldozer and a little small bulldozer, one of those little small ones, and a little steamroller to flatten the earth and that kind of thing, and a couple of porta potties. I guess they were, like I said, they've been doing work all along the freeway there. So they've been clearing out a lot of the uh, thick forest or thick woods, the brush and that kind of stuff, so they could make a nice little landscaped dog trail or walking trail that you could go through. Um, so Chief heads off, and we decided to give him a little bit of space. We don't want to. I didn't want to like crowd Chief because it made Murphy a little bit nervous. But Murphy's a very social dog. He just, like I said, he and Chief automatically just did not get off on the right foot. And so I talked to the mom a little bit, and she seems really nice. And she's mentioned that she's a vet tech or something like that, which was kind of cool. And we were both dog people, and so after the big dog heads out, I put Murphy back on the ground, and we start heading into the woods. And like I said, it's just this curvy little path. It's really cute the way they had it landscaped. You head down a little gully, and then you go up a little hill, and it was cute. And so we're walking around, and he's sniffing every tree in the whole forest, and the sun's starting to go down. It's starting to get a little gray, but you can still see some light in this sky. And as you go deeper into this little walking trail, you can see where the walking trail ends, and the real woods begin, where they hadn't done anymore, where they had stopped mowing down the brush and things like that, where it gets really thick. And then beyond that, I could see some flashing lights. I didn't know if they were car lights or whatever, but there was some flashing red and amber lights. And so we're just walking around, and Murphy's like enjoying every minute of it. He loves the woods. And all of a sudden he starts getting antsy again. I thought, well, shit, maybe we should head back. And before I even turn around, all of a sudden the brush just bursts open, and there's Chief, like right in my face. And I kind of stumbled back, and the guy says, "Oh man, I am so sorry. He heard you say Murphy, and he was right up my butt." I went, "Oh, that's okay. It happens." And you believe me, I know. And as I'm petting Chief, he's almost as tall as I am, and I'm petting Chief, and I bend down to pick up the leash for Murphy, and the leash is slack. And I went, "What the?" And I look down, and Murphy's collar is on the end of the leash, but Murphy's not there. And just this rush of sheer panic runs through me. I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't lose Murphy in the woods. This is ridiculous." And he was still saying something. The guy was still saying something about Chief. I said, couldn't tell you what he said. I started running off and just screaming Murphy at the top of my lungs. And he knew immediately that I was like, "Oh shit, what the hell?" So he said, "I'll go this way." I said, "Okay," and I headed off the other direction. And so I head deeper into I'm into the woods. I'm off the trail, and I'm into the woods, and it's like thicket and stickers and swampy and gross, and it smells like swamp water kind of a thing, And I'm going crazy trying to find him, and he's not a barker. He's not a vocal. I mean, he gets vocal with me, but he doesn't. He's not like he's not. You're not going to hear him. He's not a barker. Even when people come to the house, he doesn't bark. The other dogs bark. He just sits there. But so I'm really getting frustrated, and then I can feel my voice cracking because I'm starting. I don't want to cry. I don't want to panic. I'm going to find him. And I hear like the brushes in this clearing ahead, kind of rustle. So I thought, okay, that's where it. And as I clear the woods into this big area, that I do see these flashing. There's a flashing amber light and a flashing red light, and there's a fence, and there's a warning sign about, I would say, 20 yards ahead. It's like they've mowed down. It's a big ditch, and where they mowed down all the trees. And the best thing I couldn't I can relate it to is like I mean, a small aircraft runway, or what I thought it was when I think back on it now is it might be a water reclamation area. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but in Vegas there's a lot of flooding. When every time we hit, every time the rain comes, you'd think we were getting a meteor shower, not a rain shower, because everybody panics and we get these floods, these flash floods. So the city made these huge water reclamation areas where they just dig out these big ditches and tunnels under the roads and stuff, so the water has a place to go, so it doesn't flood the freeways and the casinos and stuff like that. And that's what it reminded me of, but it was kind of a swampy. Of course, the ones in Vegas are just desert, but this was that kind of swampy looking. So I cleared those woods, and I do see something crackle and moving in the thickets ahead of me, and I thought, okay, there he is. And I step in slog, and my foot goes into this mud. And oh man, and it was almost like I stirred up the smell. And I don't know if anybody's ever had a dog that's been petrified before. I mean, just totally terror, just in total terror. But the urine that comes out of them at that point has this pungent, very, very pungent odor. And that's what I smelled immediately when I stepped into this area. This horrible. If terror had a smell, that would be the smell. And I thought, oh my God, what's wrong? I'm like, Murphy, come here, buddy. And I see his little head. I see him perk up. He's either on his side or he's rolling over or something, because I can see, because he's got that little light mark on his face. His beard is white and his little face is white. And then I can see his little chest. And then all of a sudden I couldn't see it anymore. It's like something blocked it. I mean, and I stopped for a minute and I took a couple more big slog, and I could see fur, but it was not Murphy's fur. It was too much of it. It was so dark at that point. I was away from the lights of the rest area, and all the lights I had were these two, this one amber and this one red light farther down. And then I could also see, by that point, I could see the passing cars in the freeway, which was probably another football and a half distance away. So that was quite a ways away. But I saw this hump, and that's the best way I can describe it. It was like a bush all of a sudden suddenly moved in front of me, and that's when I smelled something else. And all I can tell you is it smelled rancid. I could almost liken it to, if you've ever been to a zoo and you've gone into like maybe the monkey cages, or the on a day that right before they cleaned them up or something. It's that rancid animal kind of musk. And right as it hit my nose, this hump kind of rises up, and I'm thinking, oh shit, did I? And I almost felt like I got vertigo, because I'm looking at this hump rising up, and I feel like I'm sinking. I mean, that's how big it was getting right in front of me. I thought, oh my God, am I in quicksand or something? Because I feel like I'm sinking, but no, it's not. I'm not. It's this thing is getting taller and taller in front of me. And I guess what everybody in the world, would almost automatically think is either bear, but it didn't look like a bear. And then the other thing is, Bigfoot. My God, it's a Bigfoot. And I saw the shoulders come up, and I saw the head kind of start to come up, and I thought, oh my God, what is it? And then all of a sudden, two ears stuck into the sky and twitched, you know, And I heard Murphy whine, and I could see that Murphy had gone into this prone position. He had gone to this "I give up, don't hurt me" kind of a position. He's just laying there in the brush, either paralyzed, hurt, or stuck somehow, and he's not moving. And I'm thinking, oh my God, and then as these ears perk up, I'm like, I gasp, Murphy, like something like that, and this head just whips around, and it takes one step to the side, and it faces me. And I couldn't tell you if it was the amber and red light reflecting in its eyes, or if it had light in its eyes, but I could see these two orbs that were just really pissed. And it looked so angry, and that I'd found it, or that I'd seen it, or whatever, and it just stared me down. And you hear all these shows and stuff where you're like, don't ever stare a wild animal in the eyes, because that's a challenge. So I immediately kind of put my arms down to my side and open, because that's how like I said, I've owned dogs my whole life, and that's what you do. You don't want to show any kind of aggression. And I put my arms down to my side, and I kind of bowed my head a little bit, but I wanted to continue to look at it, but I couldn't get away from its eyes. I could not look in its eyes. It was the weirdest feeling. And that's when I remember the sound, and it seemed to make the ground just kind of rumble. It was a growl, but it was like so deep. It made my chest just kind of vibrate. Not my heart thumping necessarily, though that was happening too. It just made my whole body be kind of vibrate. And there was this growl that was just like a warning growl. I mean, I recognize that it is a warning growl. It wasn't necessarily "I'm going to kill you now" growl, but it was a warning. And this thing continued to rise up. And by the time it was at its full height, it was no longer slouching as it was facing me. I can't, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 feet tall. I mean, hopefully I'm not exaggerating, but with the ears, it definitely 8, 9 feet. Um, and it just like stared at me for a moment, and then Murphy made another noise, and it kind of just it slowly averted its glance back down to Murphy, and it looked back at me again, and it raised its hand like it was going to scoop up, or snatch, or just swat the hell out of Murphy. It was, and when the hand raised up, you could see it clearly against the sky, and these claws. And it was looking at me, but it had its hand out. And I thought, all I could think of was Murphy's about the size of a Snickers bar to this thing. And I honestly thought that was it. I said, I'm going to die tonight by this werewolf, and it's going to kill me and Murphy, and it's going to eat us both. I could see the flesh under the big shaggy humps of hair. It was like tense. It was either angry, or it was intense, or it was just as terrifying as you could possibly imagine. And then when the hand came up, I thought that was the end. And I screamed, "Murphy!" And in my head, I got to tell you, in my head, I had this beautiful speech begging this thing not to kill my dog. But I think all that came out was, "Murphy, no, 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 Murphy, no, please," that kind of thing. And the thing turned back at me again. And I thought, okay, well, now his hand is still up, and he's going to kill me. And I was just like, no, just screaming. And all of a sudden its ears kind of went back, and I thought it was a bit scared of my no, but that was ridiculous. It wouldn't be scared of it. And all of a sudden I look back over my shoulder because it's not looking at me anymore. It's looking behind me, and I can see people with the flashlight and the truck lights, the semi truck lights had come on up at the rest stop. There were at least 2 or 3 people, maybe more, coming down from the woods. And I looked back at this dog thing, and he looked at me, and he made this. I don't know what I can only describe it as a horse like sound. It also was like a snort. It was like like that. And it when it did that, that's how close I was. When it did that, I could feel the mist. I could feel moisture hit my face. And it turned around abruptly and just jumped. It made this one leap, and it hit the like a rock or a culvert or a piece of cement or something solid about a little bit farther, and then it jumped again back into the woods, and it was gone. I mean, I can't really tell you what direction it went or anything else, because the second that it jumped the first time, and it startled me, and then when it made its second jump, just as he got airborne, I jumped towards Murphy and stumbled and groveled and went through the swampy stuff and scooped him up. And I looked up, and it was gone. It was just totally gone. And by that time, the 2 people from the van and Chief were running up, and they were followed by the 2 thugs. One of them had a gun, a little pistol, and the first person to say anything was the one of the thugs, and they said something like, "Was that a bear? Was that a cougar?" And I stood there with Murphy. I don't know. And I looked at the other couple, the couple that had Chief's owner, and Chief was just barking like crazy. And I looked at them, and the father, the Chief's dad, basically was just still trying to get Chief under control. But the mother looked at me, and she just like shook her head and like don't say anything, And I didn't. I just followed that lead. And she says, "Let me see him." I said, and I didn't want to let Murphy go. And she says, "Remember, I'm a vet tech." And I went, "Oh," and I let her take a look, and we walked back up the hill towards the rest stop area, and I could hear the two thug guys. They were still talking. Like, if that's a bear, I'll kill it. And the other guy's like saying something stupid, like, if that's a bear, you'd be dead. He's just not gonna. It's that little gun you got's not gonna do nothing to it. And we come up, and I sit down in the car, and I smell like hell, and I look like hell, and she brings a towel over that she toweled Murphy off, and she gives it to me, and she says, "You gonna be okay?" And I just kind of sat there and looked at her like, "Is he okay?" And she went, "Yeah, he's got a few scratches, but it looks like these are abrasions from like going through the scruff and the woods. It doesn't like he was attacked or anything." And she hands him back to me, and he's just quaking, and which is okay, because at least it proved that he was alive, because he was so cold and so stiff that if he hadn't been quaking, I would have thought he was dead. And she says, "Keep the towel around him. He's probably going into shock. Just kind of sit with him for a while." And yeah. And they were really good about kind of hanging out with me for a minute, but we didn't say nothing. I mean, nobody said a word. And then all of a sudden, the big rig blows its horn, and the driver says, "Hey, man, I got what do you call him? I don't know. He's some word for the cops. He's highway patrol or something. They're on their way." And that's all it took. It was like the thugs were in their car and ready to go. And I was like, and I knew I had drugs in my car. I was like, "Okay, well, time to go." And the couple was like, "Okay, yeah, we're all gonna go." And it was just that fast. I mean, the truck pulls out onto the freeway, and he waves back at us and waves goodbye. And I look at her and I say, "Thank you, guys." And I say, "Nice meeting you, Chief." And she says, "It was nice to meet Murphy." She says, "It's a good thing we were all dog people." And that word just kind of stuck in my head. Yeah, we're all dog people. And like I said at the beginning, I never met a dog in my life that I couldn't win over. They all love me. They've always all loved me. And when I look back on it, I remember thinking my brain was like trying to was so overpowered. I was just thinking, how do I tame this one? How do I? It's going to kill me. How do I get this one over? And there was a look in its eyes, and I wouldn't say it was evil because I don't believe that. I don't. Animals aren't evil. And I'm not sure what its intentions were, if it was really going to hurt me and Murphy, or if it simply wanted to scare me. If so, mission accomplished. And nor do I think that it was scared off by the oncoming people and Chief and the lights and all that. It just seemed frustrated, and it like it was had been interrupted, and it was just really pissed about being interrupted. Period. Or seen, even. I don't know. Uh, I can't tell you if it was a strategy on his part, um, or just pure instinct. Uh, but I will never forget. And when you say it sounds like a Hollywood movie, I will never forget that hand, that claw coming up, swooping up, mud splashing everywhere into the sky. And that is a vision I'll always remember. Because it's almost that quintessential Wolfman, symbol where you see the guy's hand, the Wolfman's hand coming up before it kills somebody. It was, like I said, it was almost stereotypical. I thought there's no reason in the world he couldn't have killed Murphy. He may not have gotten away with killing me in time before everybody else showed up, but he definitely could have ended Murphy in a heartbeat. And yes, I screamed at it, but I don't think it was enough to distract it from what it was doing. I think if it had wanted to, it could have. And I don't think it had any intention of killing us or hurting us. I think it wanted to let us know, don't do it again. And we won't. um, so anyway, everybody, the band pulls out before I do, and she kind of gives me a wave, and I can see Chief in the back window. He's totally unaffected. I mean, this dog was like the whole time. He didn't seem to even be fazed by the whole thing. And I watched them go away, and it just suddenly occurred to me, shit, I didn't get any of these people's names. I mean, who knows what would have happened without them? And I didn't. I mean, I thanked them, but I never even got their names. And we went up. Well, actually, I hung back for a minute just because I still thought I was going to after that, I was definitely wanting to get high. And as luck would have it, I had I sat on my pipe, and that was the end of that. And so I didn't, and I just thought, you know what, maybe that's for the best. And by the time I got up to my friend in Washington, I had decided I didn't. I won't say that I never got high again after that, but it was definitely a sobering moment. And I don't know what it did to me as far as my feelings about dogs go. Murphy was, I mean, he was my friend always, but anytime I saw, especially up in Washington when I was only there for a few weeks, especially after he started making fun of me for telling him the story and stuff, I didn't want to be there. And plus, for some reason, I think he was under the impression that, I was going to bring a bunch of Vegas drugs up to him or something like that, and that just wasn't going to happen. But it just didn't work out, and we just turned around and went home. And on our trip home, we took a whole other freeway home. I didn't want to go anywhere near that place. But since then, I've obviously I've sobered up, and Murphy is okay, and we're doing well. We do have some nightmares, which is why I contacted Vic initially. Like I said, I started rescuing, and I don't think it really hit me again. The memories didn't really start hitting. I think I'd almost blocked it out for many years, and I didn't really think about it again. There were two things that started it again. It was the fact that I'd gotten a couple of aggressive dogs, and hearing those growls would trigger it sometimes. But then around Halloween, I thought, I want to do something neat for my Facebook page around Halloween. And I started seeing I saw Dogman stories on the internet. And I was like, is this a bigger deal than I think it is? I mean, is this something that other people have seen and gone through? Because I'll be honest, you can say I wasn't high during this whole thing, and I was not. I hadn't almost at least a day. But I had thought, after a few years, especially, I just kind of chalked it up to maybe I dreamt it. Maybe it was a nightmare. Maybe because they sure were then. I mean, I continually have nightmares now. But then I started seeing these things on the internet, and I thought, well, that'll be cool. I'll do like a werewolf theme or something like that on my page. And I shouldn't have done that because once I did it, and because I'm an artist and I like to make little paintings and digital stuff, digital paintings and AI stuff. And after I designed my banner, I was like, no, I don't want this, and so I actually took it down before Halloween. I just couldn't do it. In fact, I think I sent you a picture, didn't I, Vic?
You did.
Yeah, I thought so. And I don't know. After I talked with you, then it felt better for a while, and then, like I said, I lost Lulu, and that was traumatizing. And I think it all came back. I don't know if I'm ever going to be rid of it.
Sometimes, Bret, when you have a traumatic experience like that, like when you lost Lulu, especially how you wound up losing her, that can trigger the problem to come right back, and you're almost back at square one. But everything's going to be okay. It's just going to take time. I mean, there's no magic wand, as you know, to wave and make all the pain go away. It's going to take time, and it is a process. But as time does tick by, this is just going to get better and better for you. You'll see exactly what I mean. But I've got some questions here for you, Brett, if
Oh
you're
yeah.
ready or if you want to take
No,
some
I'm good.
time to reset.
No, I'm good. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Well, Tracy Compio, she wants to know, Brett, are you okay after this encounter?
Um, some days, most days, yeah. Like I said, this was in 2016, 17, something like no, 2016. Um, yeah, I'm okay. It's shaky sometimes, but um, rescuing the foster dog and taking care of the foster dogs has saved me, I think, in a lot of different ways. Um, Having the responsibility of these wonderful lives has saved me more times than I can tell you. Um, I never got over the rift in my family. Um, and of course, I never got back together with my wife. Though here's an interesting thing I don't think I even told Vic that my ex-wife didn't talk to me for years. After that, not after the incident, but since about a year before the incident. But I hadn't talked to her in ages, and the only time she ever contacted me was to tell me that our husky that we had owned together was really sick, and she just didn't have the heart to put him down. Could I come over? And that was the first time I'd seen her in 10 years. And I took Bane, my husky, down to the vet to have him euthanized. And I got to say, usually euthanasia is just a horrible thing to have to go through with any animal. With Bane, it was beautiful because when I first got to her house, he didn't know me. He was like it'd been so long that his brain, and plus whatever was affecting him, whatever disease he had, he was just almost in a coma. By the time I picked him up, took him to the vet, and we were laying in the car waiting for the vet to allow us to come in because they had an emergency or something, and they only let one person in at a time. It was like something clicked, and suddenly he knew me, and we went in. And they reeled him in on a gurney, and he was laying with me, and I stayed with him the whole time. And he was his old self. He was smiling and he was wagging his tail. He still couldn't move because he was paralyzed, but his tail was wagging, and he had a smile on his face. And as they put him under, he had these big, beautiful, bright blue eyes, and he never his gaze never left mine, and that was a beautiful thing because when he closed his eyes, it was like he was saying goodbye, and that was a neat thing. And then I've never seen her again, so whatever. But yeah, it's the only time I ever saw her. But yes, I'm okay.
Thank goodness for that. You're going to have good days and bad days. Like I said, it's a process, but you're working your way through it. And yeah, you will get there. It's just going to take time. Well, the next question is from Darren, and Darren wants to know, or his question reads, I'd like to know if the face looked like the one from An American Werewolf in London.
If I recall that movie, it was that the werewolf in American Werewolf, he was big. He had a thick face, but this was very angular. This was very sharp. I don't know. There's an old movie called The Howling. Um, that's the only thing I could possibly compare it to. They're very, very almost cartoonishly long ears, and this very long pointed snout. And I mean, it looked like a really ugly German Shepherd. That's the best I can tell you. I mean, that's what it looked like, with glowing amber or red eyes or whatever. I think it was just catching the light of the cistern thing, but it looked like they were glowing.
All right, the next question is from Al Santoriga. Hey, Al, how you doing? His question is, how did Murphy get out of the collar without you seeing him? I'm sorry, he wants to know, how did it get Murphy out of his collar without you seeing him do it?
Oh, he didn't. The collar was still attached to the leash. When Chief hit me, I dropped the leash. And when I picked up the leash, I felt it was like limp, and I looked down, and the collar was still attached to the leash. I think Murphy had just shot out of pure fear. I think he actually had just run away from Chief. I don't think that had. I think the Dogman had anything to do with that, because it was like several. He was almost almost 2 football fields away from where I initially lost him. At least it seems to me that way. Probably not as much, but yeah, it was. I don't think the Dogman had anything to do with Murphy getting out of his leash. Murphy, like I said, he was not good on a leash, and he didn't like being on a leash. So that was strictly Murphy's fault and my fault for letting him go.
Thank goodness you found him. If you would have found him just a few moments later, that the whole experience might have wound up
Yeah,
ending in a much
yeah. I
different
don't.
way.
I've read and seen some Dogman encounters where they don't think twice about killing dogs, and that's. But I thank God hadn't read those before, because I would really have been panicked. But yeah, since then I've read a couple of stories where they've killed dogs, and it just sends a shiver up my spine. What it could have happened.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, me too. It's not going to give you the warm and fuzzies thinking about that.
No, again, like I said, I don't know why though. That always kind of that always kind of is going to bug me. I think he could have, just like I said, it could have. He was like a Twinkie to this guy, and he could have just popped him in his mouth, and that would have been the end of it. But
Yes, it could have. Definitely. Got another question for you from Samurai Sean. And Sean wants to know, how would you describe its eyes?
like I said, it almost felt like they were glowing, but there, like I said, there was this big, blood deposit area nearby that had flashing amber and red lights, and so when I look back and go, oh, it had amber and red eyes like they were on fire. Yeah, that's very dramatic to say, but it could have been the flashing of the reflections of the lights behind me. But yeah, I would say they were like fire. I mean, they bore into me. Every time I looked at its eyes, I didn't want to look away. And I don't know. I don't want to say it was necessarily out of sheer terror, but it was like, I don't want to look away from this thing. I don't want to. I felt like I won't say hypnotized. I just felt compelled. I wanted to look at this. I wanted to keep an eye on this thing. I did not want to look away. It was like they were so bright that you could see the pupils in at night. Let's put it that way. I could see where the pupils were. I could see what he was looking at. Like I said, when he looked beyond me, I could tell immediately that he was no longer looking at me. He didn't move his head, but his eyes just shifted up and over me. So I would say just very, very bright and intense, very intense. Like he was not a happy dog.
I'm sure he wasn't, or it wasn't. The next question would be from Raider, and Raider wants to know, or he's saying, thanks for being brave and telling us. Did you get to see eye color, which you just went over there?
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, I would have to say it was like a deep red or orange, amber. That's all I remember. And I don't know if that's the reflection of the other lights or not.
Well, as you know, that's a pretty typical color for their eyes, so that fits. I've got another question for you from Manuel Garcia. And Manuel wants to know, did you know about Dogman before you had that encounter?
No, I didn't. No, and no, that's why I initially thought my initial thought that night was, oh my God, I'm going to get killed by a werewolf. And I also thought, okay, as far as death goes, that's pretty cool. No, I had never heard of a Dogman before. I Sasquatch I'd heard of, but I thought I was going to get killed by a werewolf.
I could think of a lot of ways that would be much better as far as going out of this world than being killed by a werewolf. So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
pretty
yeah,
good.
of course. But it was just like, I mean, it'd be okay with me if I'm standing in the line in heaven and the guy's like, hey, how'd you die? And the guy says like, oh, I choked on a chicken sandwich. How about you? I said, I was killed by a freaking werewolf, man.
No, I get it. I understand. I do. That would be pretty cool to see in a context like that, definitely. Well, Darren's got a question for you. He wants to know, have you had any nightmares?
Lots. Yeah. Um, Initially, after my whole time in Washington, I wasn't at home. I mean, I loved Washington State. It's beautiful, but I was in a trailer in the woods, which was like reminding me of it every single day. And Murphy was just not well the whole time we were up there, and the guy didn't make us feel any more welcome. Uh, so yeah, every night when I was up there, in fact, when I could sleep, you got to remember I was also on drugs, which I purposely would not go to sleep, because and use the drugs to stay awake because I did not want to have nightmares. I refused to go to sleep for many many days, and it was not healthy. And in the end, that's why I kind of left there immediately. I just never felt good there, and I wasn't going to meet my goals there, obviously. So
No, it sounds like you weren't going to. I've got another question for you from Michigan Meat Eater, and he wants to know, how far do you think the creature jumped each time when it was escaping?
it was like two jumps and it was gone. So I would say, God, I don't know. I mean, because it was like leaping uphill towards the woods division in the freeway. I would say, oh God, I could be totally exaggerating here, but it could be like anywhere from 10 to 15 feet each time it jumped, because it was a good, maybe more than that even, because yeah, no, more than that, because it was like 10 yards. I would say about 10 yards between us and the wood line, and it jumped twice and it was gone. So yeah, I mean, maybe 20 feet.
That's a good jump. I've got another question for you from Stephen Weishaupt, and Stephen wants to know, does he remember if it had hawk legs?
Yes, it did. Yeah, the only reason I say yes, it did so definitely was when it jumped, I could see them. I didn't even pay attention to the legs for the entire time it was like right in front of me, because it was just this mesh of darkness, and then the two eyes, and the porcupine like hackles. I mean, every time the hackles went up, every time it got scared, or not scared, but angry, or had a reaction, these hackles would just kind of shoot up like a porcupine's. But yeah, it wasn't until he jumped up, and then like I said, he hit like a piece of cement or a rock the first time, and he jumped off the solid rock, and that's when he just took off. It was just like he was gone in a heartbeat. Um, but yeah, it definitely had hawk legs.
Those are some pretty good jumps, but yeah, these guys can jump like it's going out of style, so I guess that's not that big of a surprise. I've got another question for you from Michigan Meat Eater. He wants to know, did it look like the Van Helsing werewolf at all?
That's I do remember that movie. Yeah, I guess, but I remember when I watched Van Helsing, I wasn't really scared. I mean, there was one point where it did scare me, but it looked. I've never been afraid of dogs or werewolves in movies. I don't care if they're about killer dogs or killer werewolves. Those don't scare, because I'm a big dog person. Like I love those things, and they've never scared me like this did. I would say it did remind me a lot of that, but if I recall again, just like the werewolf in London, it was a lot that those werewolves were a lot thicker. They were very, like bulbous. This was very kind of, he was he was massive, but there was a lot of muscle, but it was like very sinuous muscle. He wasn't like he wasn't like a quarterback, you know. He had this kind of a hump thing, you know, going, and his shoulders were huge. But you know, I would say. Plus, this thing was a lot dirtier, so it maybe if he got washed up, he'd look like the he'd look like the one in Van Helsing. Yeah.
All right. I've got another question for you from Rob Mack. And Rob wants to know, or I guess it's more of a comment. So you think the Dogman put two and two together and realized that Murphy was your dog?
I don't know. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't have any doubt that he knows that we were together at that point, and I don't. It almost sounds like he was taking mercy on me and him. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know if he put two and two together that way, but I did get a sense of intelligence. I mean, there was definitely reason behind his eyes, and that reason, I think it was to scare us. And once that was accomplished, there was just this flash of kind of, like I said, he was done with it. You know, I mean, he was like when he made that snorting sound, he just kind of winced his eyes, kind of almost blinked his eyes, and was like, screw this, you know, and he was gone. But yeah, I would say that he probably did make the connection that Murphy and I were together, because the second he raised his hand, it was just I just let out this god awful scream, which I guess is what attracted everybody to us in the first place. But yeah, he stopped immediately. He whirled around. Like I said, when he whirled around, I could feel the flecks of mud off of his mane, you know, hit me. So yeah, I think he immediately made that assumption. I don't know if, again, that could be anthropomorphizing, you know, because we have a tendency to do that. But who knows how they think?
Exactly. You can't even think for people, so how are
No,
you going
no,
to think
and
for a dog?
I can't think of what Murphy's thinking. So I can't possibly think of what this cryptid person is thinking. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no way to. That's for sure. This next question is from Joshua Long E, and that question is, did it look more like a wolf or would you say a dog?
Oh, I having seen, you know, like timber wolves and stuff like that. The timber wolves are much. I don't know. They're fluffier. Their fur is, you know, they've got that real thick fur that keeps them in the winter and stuff. He didn't have that kind. I would say he was like a big, uh, almost like a hyena. Is that right? Is that a hyena? Yeah. I mean, with he was kind of he was ugly. I don't want us to say wolves are beautiful. This guy was not a beautiful thing. Um, but he was still. That's, you can hear my dog squeaking. He was still gorgeous in his own right. I think every kind of life form is beauty in its own right, but it was just this. He had thinner fur, much thinner fur than a wolf. I could see his skin through the hair. That's why I could see his muscles tightening. Every time his muscles would tighten and his hackles would go up. And I do remember that very, very well. So it was like a mangy dog almost. I would say a mangy dog, because I've had dogs with mange before, and it's not a fun thing.
Not a pretty sight, definitely. I've got another question for you from Victoria Mar. I'm sorry. Her question is, I missed where this encounter happened. What rest stop were you at? In what state/highway?
I would love to tell you that. I'd been driving for about 8 or 9 hours. I would. If anybody can help me with the highways between Las Vegas, Nevada, and you know, Washington State. It wasn't the Pacific Coast Highway. I know that because that's the one I took back. But uh, I think we had crossed the border into California. I know that. So it was whatever, you know. You go out you go west toward California, and then you veer up north, because you can go a couple of different ways. You can go the Nevada way, which is just straight up Nevada, which is just a dull ass drive. I mean, it's just nothing but desert for 9 hours. Or you can go the more scenic, but, you know, more populated California. So was that California freeway. Um, and the rest stop, I would say, I was right after you, right, almost by Sacramento in that area. But
Got
like I said,
another question. Oh, I'm
many of the
sorry.
rest stops along that, that's okay. Many of the rest stops along that way, like I said, they were all being redone. So if anybody was out in that way during 2016, if you remember when they were redoing some of these rest stops, I could point it out again if I took that drive again, definitely.
Well, I can't blame you for not going back the same way. That's a no-brainer right there. I've got more of a general question here that I'm going to try to address. It's from Christine 1921 Murphy. And Christine wants to know, why do some people feel dread in the woods and others don't? Well, no one really knows. If these guys are demonic in nature, then that would explain it, why you feel the dread. Maybe some are demonic in nature and other ones are actual flesh and blood creatures. It's really hard to say. We don't know. All we can do is guess,
I never felt
unfortunately.
I never felt the demonic thing. I just thought it was a primal fear. I mean, and I think that is something that every human has. I mean, when you are greeted in the woods, where you may not be, at the top of the food chain, dogmen or not. I think that is an instinct. That's a fear that stretches clear back to the caveman days.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's our reptile brain.
Yeah, it's like, oh shit, I'm gonna get killed, but eaten by something. I don't know, but I got to get out of here. Yeah.
That's right. I've got another question for you from Picasty. And that question is, what did the dog man smell like?
Ass. I'm sorry, no, it's not. Like I said, I had already picked up on Murphy's fear scent. Which is anybody who's ever had a dog that's been suddenly terrified by something and pisses itself. That is a very, very distinctive and pungent odor. But when I stepped forward to try and get to Murphy, and that's when I first saw this massive hump. This because I guess it moved in front of me. I don't know if it was aware of me there yet or not, but it moved in front of me, it and I was facing its ass end, of course. But uh, it
Language.
yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
But yeah, I was facing its back, and all of a sudden, this 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 musky. Like I said, it smelled like a cleaning day at the zoo in the ape cage at the zoo. That's what it reminded me of. A real dirty primate cage at the zoo.
These guys don't smell like Irish Spring soap, so that's
Yeah,
what I would
and plus,
expect.
if you throw a little bit of wet dog smell in there, that's about what you got. Disgusting primate and wet dog.
That sounds like a pretty typical description for how they smell. So that fits. I've got another question for you from Darren. He wants to know, did the body remind you of a kangaroo?
I when you say it that way, I guess it could, but that's the last thing that was on my head. Then all I could think of was werewolf, and that's pretty much it. Because I'd never heard of Dogman, so it was like I've always been like a big science fiction fan and stuff like that. Not really paranormal necessarily, but the science fiction thing and werewolf. I mean, dog man. Period. That's what it looked like to me. But yeah, with the haunch legs, I guess. I mean, they're not as long haunch like the kangaroos, but when it jumped, it could have been. Yeah, it was very kangaroo like. But kangaroos also balance and jump with their powerful tail. This had a tail, I think. Um, yeah, it did. It had a kind of a shaggy tail, but not the kind of tail that would help it balance the jump. No, yeah. So I would say no.
All right. I've got another question for you from Zareth the Alchemist. And his question is, have you had any sort of possible encounters again?
No, no. Well, to be honest with you, I have pretty much stayed in the urban light since then. I don't. I live in Las Vegas, and um, I don't. I don't really go out on long treks like that anymore. So no, I have not.
I can understand why. I've got another one for you from Raider, and Raider wants to know what was its reaction when you yelled.
Uh, it spun around really quickly. It just shot its head back, like it's like almost like a "how dare you" moment, or like I don't know if it was surprised or not, because it obviously knew I was there already. But it when I screamed out at it, I went no, and I just kept repeating no and Murphy and no, and it it looked at me like I said, like I'm almost like, how dare you? What the hell, And at the same time, it's kind of like looked at me like, why am I even looking at this guy? Why? What is it? I should just kill him. It was more of a look of it spun around and looked at me like it was like wanting to get a reaction out of me. That's the best thing I can say is when it spun around and looked at me, it was like, ha, got ya, kind of a thing. I don't know what else to say.
That's what they do, unfortunately. I've got a question for you here from Chris Cirque, and his question is, did you happen to notice any glowing orbs during your sighting?
Mm, no, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, I did see the flashing lights near the cistern, the airfield, whatever the hell it was, beyond the ridge. But so there was a lot of lights, and plus behind him, he was actually silhouetted against the distant freeway. So there was a lot of lights from the passing cars and things like that. But I none that I would think of that were unusual or paranormal. If there were, I didn't notice them.
It's not all that common, but from time to time, you will have an eyewitness come forward and talk about their encounter and mention the fact that they did see what looked to be orbs, or sometimes it's clear that they did see orbs. So,
Yeah, if they were there, they were drowned out by the distant freeway and then these flashing lights over to my left. So
it's not unprecedented. I've got another question for you from Darren Bret, and Darren wants to know what was it doing when you came upon it again?
I don't know what it was doing. I don't know if it was crawling towards Murphy, or if it had seen or smelled Murphy, or if it had anything to do with Murphy. I don't know. I just saw this hump move from left to right because I was slowly moving towards Murphy, and it blocked my vision of him because Murphy's got a white chest, even though he was all muddy and dirty. I could still see his white chest and his little white muzzle. And then I couldn't see it, and I thought maybe he had turned over or something like that, and I couldn't see him anymore because I continued to see fur. I would say it was sniffing the ground.
There's no way to know this for.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, or rooting for something. It was doing its thing, I guess.
That it was. Sounds like it was definitely doing its thing. And there's no way to know this for sure, Bret, but I bet you good money that what you saw it doing, hovering over Murphy the way it was just done for your benefit. I mean, if you wanted to haul Murphy off and have him for dinner, then there wasn't any need for him to stop right there. He could have just snatched him up and run off with him.
Absolutely, at any time whatsoever. For that matter, he could have knocked my head off if he wanted to at any time. I was close. I mean, I was like within 7 feet of him. I mean,
yeah, that's really close. Way too close for comfort.
Yeah.
We've got a comment here from Rob Mack, and Rob says, it must have been terrifying as close to it as you were, spun around mud and water flung on you.
Yeah, it was surreal. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. It was like it was not really happening, and I think my brain went into kind of a lock because it was like if you accept that this is real, if you accept that there's a monster, 8 feet in front of you, between you and your dog or whatever, that's again, that goes into that primal brain thing where it's like, I can't fight this, I can't do anything, I'm gonna die. And so your brain just kind of numbs you, and you just, yeah, all you can feel is the fear. That's it. But at the same time, I could feel in my head, I could still think, but my body wasn't necessarily reacting to it. It was just that kind of paralyzing and terrifying. Yeah, I could think almost clearly in my head, but I had no idea what to do, and I had basically resigned myself to the fact that I was going to die. A werewolf was going to kill me, and but I wasn't going to let it kill Murphy, and that's the only thing I could keep thinking. I was not going to let it kill Murphy if I could stop it, but it was going to kill me.
Good man for protecting Murphy the way you did. Good man.
He would have done the same for me if he wasn't paralyzed.
Oh, sure, I believe it. I've got another one for you from JB. He says, you were able to discern its gender?
I say he because it was huge. No, I didn't detect any, genitals or anything like that. Its behavior seemed male, the way it would snort and kind of scruff its leg, and you know how boy dogs do, and they kind of get territorial. And maybe it's just my experience with dogs over the years, but yeah, it definitely had male dog behavior.
Yeah, sounds like it did. I've got one for you from Loose Connection, and their question is, do you think they run in packs? That's more of a question for me, and I can tell you in almost every instance, they're seen alone. But there have been few credible eyewitnesses who've shared an experience with me where they reported seeing more than one together. So apparently they do run in groups and numbers sometimes, I should say, but it clearly seems to be the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, I don't know. Would they live in communities somewhere, or in this the like in the wolf pack? Would the hunters go out by themselves, or I don't know how that would work? But yeah, that's kind of weird.
See, that's the thing. When I'm asked about that, I always tell people that wolf packs live in numbers because they need the numbers to dispatch the game that they prey upon.
They strategize, exactly. Yeah,
it's required. I mean, they need numbers to be able to run down elk, and they need the power that comes along with being in numbers to dispatch bigger prey that they wouldn't be able to take down alone. But with dogmen, by themselves, they can take down anything they're going to come across, all the way up to a bison. Anything they encounter, they can take down and feed themselves on. So there is no requirement, number one, to exist in numbers. And number two, if you think about their daily caloric requirements, if you have more than one dogman in any one area for any length of time, they're going to deplete the resources of any area overnight almost. So it just would make sense that these guys would not make a habit out of spending any time together. So
yeah, they don't seem like a social species, like man, even like gorillas or anything like that. Well, they might, I don't see them hanging out in family groups and stuff like that. So.
No, not normally. I've got another one for you from Darren. He wants to know, did you get the sense that there were more with it?
God, I did not. I was worried enough about the one in front of me. No, I didn't. I did not. As I look back on it, I think I kind of think about, well, maybe that's why it approached Murphy like it did initially. It was like it didn't just kill him immediately. Maybe it was like had a pup somewhere or something like that. But I don't think so. I just don't. He was foraging. He was doing his thing, and no, I didn't get any impression that there was another one nearby. Anyway, I mean, he could have had a mate. Who knows? But I don't think it was close by.
There might have been one nearby, but yeah,
I think I would have been dead if it had children or if it had a mate nearby. I think I would have been dead because it would have been all about protecting its family. So
Well, that's a possibility, but I highly doubt that because you're no threat to it, especially
no,
with two of them around. You're no threat at all to their offspring. So
no,
I
no,
think
you're
you
right.
being here wasn't a big deal at all.
Yeah, the only thing I go back to is like bear behavior, which if they see you even looking at their cubs wrong, they're going to charge you. You know, but yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I've got a comment from Christine, and her comment is I believe Dogman or Dogmen, Sasquatch, cryptids, and other creatures are all involved with portals. And she just might be right. I mean, there have been plenty of credible eyewitnesses
I've
who've
heard
come
that.
forward and reported seeing a Dogman or a Sasquatch step in or step out of a portal. So,
Yeah, I've heard that, and that brings me to one thing is when he leaped. Like I said, he was gone in 2 leaps, and I don't know where the hell he went. I mean, like I said, the woods were like a good 10, 15 yards away at least. No more than that. But anyway, but he was gone in a heartbeat. So who knows? That could very well be. Who knows?
it's possible. It really is.
I didn't see
Well,
it though.
that's all right. I mean, you're doing good to know your own name. So,
You're
who
right.
could fault you for not looking around? I don't blame you in the least. But I'll tell you what, Brett, it's almost 90 minutes at the 90-minute mark, and I've got another episode of Dogman Encounters that's about to drop tonight at
All right.
10:30 p.m. Eastern time. So
Excellent.
I think we probably better get ready to get out of here. But before we do, I just want to thank you again so much for coming on and sharing the details of that experience with us. And of course, answering all the questions that the listeners had. I really appreciate it.
It was very cathartic, and thank you for encouraging me to do so.
Oh, you're welcome. You are welcome. I'm just so glad it's been so helpful to you. And like I told you before, please remember if I can ever help you in the future, if you ever need help again, just let me know. And by all means, I'll be there for you because, yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
You're a good man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Murphy says goodbye too.
Please give him a hug for me.
I will. I
I
will.
appreciate that. And for everyone listening, if you've had a dogman encounter that you need help with, or if you want to come on the show and share your experience with the listeners, then all you'd need to do is to go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. And if you do that, then of course I'll contact you and schedule a phone conversation with you. And that way we can have a good talk about your experience and take it from there. But having said all that, thanks again so much for listening to the show, everyone. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you doing that. And of course, have a great weekend.